Jake was working late in the dim light of the station's engineering bay. He was used to the quiet hum of the machines and the soft sound of his tools. Life on this space station was predictable, calm, and mostly boring. Jake had left Earth years ago, hoping for adventure, but all he found was routine. The station was old, far from the bustling cities of the inner planets, and Jake often felt like he was forgotten out here in the dark reaches of the galaxy. He didn't mind it at first, but now, with each passing day, he started to feel the weight of isolation. He missed the feeling of connection, the excitement of meeting new people. The work kept him busy, though, and that was enough. At least it had been. That was until tonight. As Jake walked home through the quiet corridors of the station, something in the air felt different. It was a strange, tense energy, something he couldn't quite place. The light above flickered as he passed, casting shadows that seemed to stretch unnaturally long. Then as he turned a corner, he stopped dead in his tracks. A figure stood at the end of the hallway, bathed in the dim glow of a distant light. She was tall, dressed in a long cloak that swirled around her like smoke, and her presence felt heavy. It wasn't just her appearance, it was the way she stood there, as if she belonged to another world. Jake's heart skipped a beat when he recognized her. Lyra, her eyes met his, and for a moment it felt like time stopped. Lyra had been part of his life once, years ago, in a way that Jake never fully understood. She wasn't human, far from it. She was an alien, from a race he had only encountered briefly. There was something about her that had drawn him in back then. She had a dark, mysterious aura, like she carried secrets that were too dangerous for anyone to know. And now, standing before him, she was holding something. Two small children. Their faces were hidden beneath blankets. But Jake could see their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. His mind raced, trying to process what he was seeing. The years had passed, but Lyra hadn't changed. She looked as powerful as ever, her posture proud and unyielding. But the children, they were hers, he could tell. And now, they were his responsibility too. Whether he wanted it or not. These are yours, human, Lyra said in a voice that sent a shiver down his spine. Jake felt his knees weaken. What do you mean? They are your children, she replied, calmly, her eyes never leaving his. The result of what happened between us all those years ago. Jake's mind flashed back to that night, the night that had been a blur of strange emotions, strange feelings. It had been a brief encounter, nothing serious. Just an unexpected connection in a universe where such things were rare. But to have children? Twins? He could hardly believe it. I don't understand, Jake stammered. How can that be? Thought. Lyra took a step forward, her gaze softening for the first time. You don't need to understand everything right now, human. But these children, they are part of you, and part of me. She paused for a moment before adding, they are special, more than you could ever imagine. Jake took a step back. Why now? Why are you bringing them to me now? Lyra's eyes darkened. Because they are in danger. Jake frowned, trying to make sense of it all. Danger? From what? The voice became colder, her eyes narrowing. There are those who would take them, use them for their power. The galaxy isn't kind to those who are different, Jake. They'll come for them if we don't act quickly. Jake felt the weight of her words like a cold hand closing around his chest. The last thing he had ever wanted was to be part of some galactic war, but this was something else entirely. These children weren't just alien, they were part of him. He didn't know what to do, how to react, but he knew one thing for sure. He couldn't turn his back on them. Why me? Jake asked, his voice shaking slightly. Why would they be coming after us? I'm just an engineer. I'm not some warrior or soldier. Lyra shook her head. It's not about who you are, Jake. It's about what they are, and what they will become. She glanced down at the twins who were stirring now, their tiny hands reaching up toward him. They are the next step in evolution, a mix of human and aliens, something more powerful than either race alone. Jake felt his stomach twist. He had never wanted to be involved in anything like this. But now, with the children in front of him, He knew he had no choice. "I need you to protect them, Jake," Lyra said softly. "You are their father, whether you accept it or not." The word hit Jake like a punch to the gut. Father. He didn't feel ready for this. Didn't know how to be a father. But in that moment, as he looked at the two tiny faces staring back at him, he realized that whether he was ready or not, his life had just changed forever. He took a deep breath and nodded. "I'll protect them. I don't know how, but I will." Lyra's eyes softened for a moment before she turned, her cloak swirling as she began to walk away. "You'll have to learn quickly, human. There's no time to waste." As Jake watched her disappear into the shadows, holding the twins close, he felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility settle over him. His life had just taken a turn into the unknown, and he wasn't sure what lay ahead. But he knew one thing for sure. He would do whatever it took to protect these children, even if it meant standing against forces far greater than anything he could imagine. Jake stood frozen in the dim hallway long after Lyra and the twins had disappeared. His mind was racing, trying to make sense of everything. He had only known Lyra briefly years ago. He hadn't thought much about her since then, just another encounter in the vast universe, nothing special. But now she had returned with two children, his children, and they weren't even fully human. Shaking his head, Jake finally turned and walked back to his small apartment. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. As he stepped inside, the door clicked shut behind him. The silence was overwhelming. He sat down at the table, his hands shaking as he tried to collect his thoughts. He had no idea what to do now. A soft knock at the door broke his focus. Jake stood quickly and opened it to find Lyra standing outside, the twins in her arms. They were quiet now, their eyes closed. But their presence filled the room with an undeniable energy. "I thought you might want to hear more," Lyra said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "But who they are and why they are so important." Jake nodded, his mind still spinning. He gestured for her to sit down. "Please, explain. I don't understand any of this. Why now? Why me?" Lyra carefully placed the twins on the couch, ensuring they were comfortable before she sat down opposite Jake. She looked at him, her eyes dark and serious. "You didn't know what you were part of that night, Jake," she began. "Created wasn't just a mistake, it was something more. These children are the result of a merging of our two species, human and my people, the vampires." Jake blinked, his confusion growing. "But we didn't even plan for this."
How could
it have happened? Lyra's expression softened for a moment. "Sometimes these things happen. It's rare, but it's not unheard of. My people are a race of immortals, bound by a code of survival. For centuries, we have kept to ourselves, never mixing with others. But we have weaknesses, Jake. Weaknesses that we have kept hidden." Jake leaned forward, trying to process her words. "Weaknesses? What kind of weaknesses?" Lyra hesitated, her gaze flickering toward the twins. "Our race cannot reproduce as other species do. We are immortal, yes, but we cannot give birth to our own kind, until now." Jake's mind was racing again. "You're saying these twins are something entirely new?" Lyra nodded. "Exactly. The children are not only human, but also of my kind. They carry the immortality of my people, but also the humanity that will shape their future. They will be strong, more powerful than any of us. They will grow quickly. They are the key to saving both our races." Jake frowned, trying to make sense of what Lyra was saying. "Save. Save them from what?" Lyra's eyes grew hard. "From those who seek to destroy us? You see, there are others who would take advantage of their power. Some would use them to control the galaxy, others simply want them dead. Their people are in hiding from a faction that believes our kind should not exist. These children, they are the future. But they are also a threat." Jake's mind was overwhelmed. He had never wanted anything like this. He was just an ordinary man and engineer, nothing special. But now, he was the father of two children who could change the galaxy. "What do you need me to do?" Jake asked, his voice steady, despite the chaos in his mind. Lyra smiled faintly. "I need you to protect them, Jake. You're the only one who can." Jake felt the weight of her words settle on him. Not he didn't know what he was getting into, but one thing was clear: he couldn't turn away from this. These were his children now, no matter how unbelievable that seemed. He would do whatever it took to keep them safe. You said they were the key to saving your people. How do we stop this faction from destroying them? Jake asked. Lyra leaned back, her expression thoughtful. There are many ways they could come after us, but the most dangerous of all is the elder of my race. He is the one who believes that our kind should remain pure, and he sees these children as an abomination. If he finds them, he will stop at nothing to destroy them and anyone who stands in his way. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How do we stop him? Lyra met his gaze. We need to find allies. There are others who will help us. People who have seen the truth about what's coming. But we must act quickly. Time is not on our side. Jake nodded, feeling a surge of determination rise in him. He had never asked for this, but it didn't matter now. He had a responsibility to the twins, to Lyra, and to the future. He would protect them no matter what. He looked over at the twins, who were still peacefully sleeping on the couch. They were so small, so innocent, but Jake could feel their potential. They were the future of a galaxy that didn't yet understand the power they carried. Lyra stood up, her expression resolute. We must go to the ancient city of my people. It's the only place where we can gather the support we need. It's hidden away, far from the eyes of those who seek to harm us. There, we will find the answers we need to stop the Elder. Jake stood as well, his mind made up. Then let's go. Lyra nodded, a small smile touching her lips. We move tonight. The longer we wait, the closer they come. We can't afford to lose any more time. As they gathered their things and prepared to leave, Jake couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. He didn't know what the future held. But for the first time in a long while, he felt a sense of purpose. These children, his children, were his responsibility, and he would fight to protect them no matter the cost. The next few days passed in a blur of preparations. Jake and Lyra didn't waste any time. The twins, still too young to fully understand what was happening, were mostly peaceful, their strange powers only becoming more evident as time went on. They could move things with a simple glance, and their eyes would glow faintly when they were deep in thought. Jake watched them with a mixture of awe and fear. Children, his children, were not like anything he had ever imagined. Lyra didn't say much during these days. She was focused, determined, as though every action she took was one step closer to stopping the enemy. The mysterious faction that was after the twins was closing in, and the closer they got to their goal, the more dangerous it became. Jake didn't fully understand all the reasons behind the attack on Lyra's people, but he knew that these twins were something more than just babies. They were the key to everything. We need to move quickly, Lyra said one evening as they packed their things. The Elder has spies everywhere. He knows about the twins, and he'll stop at nothing too. Take them. Jake stood by the small window, staring out into the dark expanse of space. He felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The universe, once so vast and exciting, now seemed full of threats and dangers. He wasn't sure what he had signed up for, but one thing was clear: he would protect the twins with everything he had. Where exactly are we going? Jake asked, turning toward Lyra. We're going to the ancient city of my people, she replied. It's hidden away in a place no one would think to look. But it's not just a place of refuge, it holds the answers we need. There we can find the help we need to fight back against the Elder. Jake nodded, trying to wrap his mind around everything. He had never imagined himself as part of something so big. But here he was, protecting children who were far more important than he had ever expected. He couldn't deny it. His life had changed in ways he couldn't yet understand. The twins were now awake, their big glowing eyes watching him from the couch. They were so small, so innocent, but Jake could feel the power within them. He had to protect them no matter what. As the hours passed, they gathered everything they needed for the journey. Lyra was methodical, carefully making sure they had supplies for every situation. Jake's mind kept wandering back to the growing danger. The Elder was coming for them, and when he did, they would have to be ready. I don't know how to fight, Lyra, Jake said quietly. I'm just an engineer. I don't know how to protect anyone in a war, Lyra turned to him, her expression softening for a moment. You don't have to fight in the way you think, Jake. The children are more powerful than you realize. They will need someone to teach them, someone who can guide them, and you're the one chosen for that task. Jake swallowed hard. The idea of teaching these children, of guiding them to become something more, was both terrifying and overwhelming. But he had no choice. They were his responsibility now. Lyra stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. You've already begun, Jake. Protecting them by just being here with them. It is enough.
The words were comforting,
But they did little to ease the fear rising inside him. He couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was coming. He had seen the way Lyra had looked when she spoke of the elder. There was a darkness there, a history filled with pain and loss. And the closer they got to their destination, the more Jake felt that darkness closing in on them by the time they were ready to leave. The station was quiet, its lights dimmed, as if the whole place was holding its breath. Lyra led the way through the halls, her steps sure and steady. Jake followed, the twins nestled safely in her arms. He couldn't help but glance over his shoulder, as though expecting someone to appear at any moment. The station seemed eerily still, almost as if it were waiting for something. They boarded a small ship, kind used for quick travel, hidden away from the eyes of the station's security. The engines hummed to life, and the ship slowly lifted. Off the ground, heading toward the unknown. Jake sat back in his seat, staring out the window. The stars stretched out before them, endless and cold. He had never felt so far from home. As the ship sped through space, Lyra remained focused, her eyes never straying from the controls. Jake tried to relax, but the tension in the air was palpable. He could feel the weight of what they were doing. The responsibility of caring for these children growing heavier with each passing moment. The twins were quiet, their strange powers still hidden, but Jake could feel the energy around them. It was as if the whole universe was aware of their presence. He wondered how long they had before the elder found them. How long before the peaceful life he had known was gone forever. As they traveled deeper into uncharted space, Lyra finally spoke. We are getting closer. The ancient city of my people is hidden on a small moon in the outer rim. It's isolated, far from the places where the elder's spies could reach. But even there, we won't be safe forever. We have to be ready. Jake turned to her, his voice steady. I'll do whatever it takes, Lyra. I'll protect them. I won't let anyone take them from me. Lyra looked at him, her eyes soft, but filled with the same determination. I know, Jake, and that's why we have a chance. But as they neared their destination, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The stars outside seemed to close in on them, and the darkness of space felt colder than ever before. The closer they got to the ancient city, the closer they got to a fight they were not yet ready for. And as the ship flew deeper into the unknown, Jake knew one thing for certain: their real battle was just beginning. The journey to the ancient city was long and quiet. The ship cut through space, its sleek form gliding silently toward their destination. Jake sat in his seat, staring out the window at the endless stretch of stars. The galaxy seemed so vast, so cold. He couldn't help but feel small and insignificant in the grand scheme of things. But as he looked down at the twins, sleeping peacefully beside Lyra, he realized something. He wasn't just a passenger on this journey. He had a purpose. These children, his children, were his responsibility now. No matter how dangerous things became, no matter how uncertain the future was, he couldn't turn back. Lyra remained focused on the controls, her face set in concentration. She hadn't spoken much since they left the station. Jake understood. She was thinking about the mission, about the danger they were facing. He could feel the weight of it in the air, the pressure of the unknown pressing down on them. I never imagined my life would come to this, Jake said quietly, breaking the silence. Lyra looked at him, her eyes softening for a moment. One ever does. Life has a way of changing, sometimes when we least expect it. Jake nodded. He had thought his life would be simple. He had dreamed of a future where he could work on machines, fix things, and live quietly. But now everything was different. He had been thrust into a world of danger, with an alien race, an ancient city, and twins with powers beyond anything he had ever known. It was hard to believe how quickly everything had changed. "Do you ever regret it?" Jake asked, looking at Lyra. "Everything that happened between us. Was it worth it?" Lyra's gaze was distant, as though she were remembering something far in the past. "I don't regret it, Jake. I never have. But I wish things could have been different. I wish we didn't have to fight. But the galaxy is a dangerous place. The Elder will stop at nothing to get what he wants, and the twins. They are the key to everything." Jake felt a chill at her words. He had known they were heading into dangerous territory, but hearing it from Lyra made it all the more real. They were being hunted. The Elder's spies were out there, waiting to strike. "What? If we can't protect them?" Jake asked, his voice filled with doubt. "What if we fail?" Lyra turned to him, her eyes hardening with determination. "We won't fail. Not while you're with them." Jake was quiet for a long moment. He couldn't help but feel like he wasn't prepared for this. He wasn't a soldier. He didn't have the skills to fight a war. He was just an ordinary man who had been thrown into an extraordinary situation. The weight of it all pressed down on him, and for the first time since meeting Lyra, he felt a surge of fear. "Do you think I can do this?" he asked quietly. "I don't feel like I'm the right person for this." Lyra met his gaze, her expression soft but filled with strength. "You are exactly what they need, Jake. You've already shown more courage than you realize. You didn't hesitate to protect them, and that is all that matters. You may not have the skills of a soldier, but you have something more important. A heart that will fight for those you love." Jake looked at the twins again, his heart swelling with a mix of fear and love. He had to be strong for them. He had to do this no matter how hard it was. "We're almost there," Lyra said, breaking his thoughts. "The city is within reach, but we must be careful. The Elder's spies are closer than we think. We won't have much time once we arrive." Jake nodded, his resolve hardening. They were almost there. They were so close, but the danger was only just beginning. The ship began to slow as they neared their destination. Jake could see the faint outline of a moon ahead, hidden in the shadow of a distant planet. It was small, barely noticeable against the backdrop of stars, but to Lyra and her people, it was a place of great importance. The ancient city was hidden. Here, away from the prying eyes of their enemies. As they descended toward the moon, Jake's heart began to race. They had no idea what awaited them once they landed. Would they find allies who would help them? Or would they find the enemy waiting for them, ready to strike? The ship landed softly on the surface of the moon, and Lyra powered down the engines. The twins stirred in their sleep, and Jake stood up, feeling the weight of what was to come. "Stay close," Lyra warned as they prepared to leave the ship. "We don't know who is watching us, and the city is not what it seems." Jake nodded and followed Lyra as they stepped out into the cold, airless world. The surface of the moon was barren and rocky, with only distant mountains rising in the distance. There was no sign of life, but Jake knew better than to believe that it was completely empty. Lyra led the way, her eyes scanning the horizon as they moved toward the ancient city. The path was rough, the ground uneven beneath their feet, but they moved quickly. The twins were silent now, their small hands gripping Lyra's cloak. As they approached the entrance to the city, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The air was still, too still. There were no signs of life, no movement. In the city, it was as if everything had been abandoned. But when they stepped through the gates, Jake saw the truth. The city was not empty. It was merely waiting for them to arrive. In the distance, shadows moved across the ancient stone buildings. The city was alive, and it was ready for the battle that was coming. Jake's heart pounded in his chest. The fight for the twins was far from over. In this city, this place of refuge, might be the last chance they had to win. The ancient city loomed ahead, its weathered stone structures standing tall against the harsh landscape of the moon. Jake could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. as if the very ground beneath him was aware of what was about to unfold. Lyra led the way with quiet confidence, her eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. The twins, held securely in her arms, were calm but alert, their small eyes glowing faintly in the dim light of the city. Jake followed close behind, his heart pounding in his chest. He had never imagined that his life would lead him here too. This place of ancient secrets and hidden dangers. The city, once a thriving hub of Lyra's people, now seemed like a forgotten relic, abandoned by time. Jake knew better. This city wasn't just abandoned, it was a trap, a waiting ground for the battle that would shape the future of their galaxy. Lyra stopped suddenly, her sharp eyes narrowing as she sensed something. Jake tensed, ready for anything. He'd learned to trust her instincts by now. She moved quickly, signaling for him to follow. They ducked behind a crumbling wall, hiding in the shadows. "They're here," Lyra whispered, her voice tight with urgency. "The Elder's spies. We don't have much time." Jake's stomach twisted. He had known this moment would come, but the reality of it was still unsettling. The Elder, the one who had been hunting them from the very beginning, was close. Had sent his spies, and Jake could feel the weight of their presence pressing down on him. He had no idea what these spies would do once they found them. But he knew one thing. They weren't just looking for the twins, they were after Lyra. "2. Do you have a plan?" Jake asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyra's gaze softened, but there was no trace of fear in her eyes. "I have many plans, Jake, but none of them will work without your help. You need to be ready to fight." Jake swallowed hard. "Don't know if I'm ready for this. I've never been a fighter. I don't have the skills to protect them." Lyra turned to him, her expression serious but reassuring. "You are ready, Jake. You don't need to be a soldier. You only need to protect what matters most, the twins. Everything else is secondary." Jake nodded, trying to calm the nerves that were rising in his chest. He had no choice now. The battle was here, and there was no turning back. He had to fight for Lyra, for the twins, for the future of their people. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed through the city. Jake's heart raced. "We're here." Lyra motioned for him to follow, and they moved swiftly through the cities. Narrow streets, staying in the shadows as much as possible. The twins were silent, their eyes alert but unafraid. Jake couldn't help but marvel at how calm they were in the face of all this danger. They were so small, so innocent, yet they carried within them the weight of the galaxy's future. They reached the center of the city, where an ancient temple stood. It was here in the heart of this forgotten place that the final battle would take place. Lyra paused at the entrance, her eyes scanning the area. She could feel the presence of the enemy closing in. "They're here," she whispered. "Stay close. We need to make our stand now." Jake's hands clenched into fists. This was it. The moment he had feared had finally arrived. He had no training, no weapons, nothing but his will to protect his family. But in that moment, as he looked at the twins, he knew he would do whatever it took to keep them safe. The first of the enemy appeared, a group of tall, shadowy figures emerging from the darkness. They were like ghosts, their movements swift and silent. Jake's breath caught in his throat as he saw their faces. They were not just spies, they were assassins, sent to eliminate them all. Lyra stepped forward, her presence commanding and powerful. "Stay back," she warned them. "You are out of your league. The twins are under my protection, and you will not harm them." The assassins didn't respond with words. Instead, they advanced, their eyes glowing with a cold, calculating malice. They knew who Lyra was, and they had no intention of backing down. Jake's heart raced as he looked to Lyra for guidance. She gave him a small nod, and in that moment, everything seemed to slow down. He didn't know how, but he suddenly felt more focused. He could hear the wind, the whispers of the past, the heartbeat of the city around him. As the assassins drew closer, Jake felt a strange energy building inside him. It was subtle at first, like a faint buzzing in the back of his mind. But then it grew stronger, almost like a wave of power coursing through his veins. He didn't understand it, but he could feel that something was awakening within him. Something that had been dormant all along. Lyra's voice broke through his thoughts. "Use it, Jake. You have the power to protect them." Don't hesitate. Without thinking, Jake raised his hand. The energy surged through him, and with a sudden burst, he pushed it outward. The shockwave of force slammed into the nearest assassin, sending him flying backward into a stone pillar. The other assassins froze, momentarily stunned by the unexpected display of power. Lyra stood tall, her eyes glowing with approval. That's it, Jake. You are more capable than you think. The assassins recovered quickly, but Jake felt different now. He wasn't just some helpless engineer anymore. He had the power to defend his family, to protect them, and that was all. That mattered. The battle raged on, the assassins attacking with speed and precision. But Jake and Lyra fought back with everything they had. The twins, still hidden behind them, watched silently, their small hands glowing faintly with energy. They were part of this fight too, in ways Jake couldn't fully understand yet. After what felt like an eternity, the last of the assassins fell, their bodies crumpling to the ground. Jake stood, panting, his heart racing in his chest. He had done it. They had won. But even as they caught their breath, Lyra's expression hardened. This is only the beginning, Jake. The Elder will come, and when he does, we will be ready. Jake nodded, the weight of their struggle settling on his shoulders. The future was uncertain, and the battle was far from over. But for the first time since all of this had begun, he felt ready. Ready to fight for the future of the galaxy, ready to fight for his family. The dust settled in the ancient city, the echoes of battle faded, leaving behind a heavy silence. Jake stood among the ruins, his chest rising and falling with each breath. He was exhausted, his body aching from the fight. But despite the weariness, there was something else, a feeling he couldn't quite place, sense of accomplishment, of having done something important. Something he had never imagined he could do. Lyra stood beside him, her expression calm but serious. The twins were with her, still and silent. They had been sheltered from the worst of the battle, hidden in the shadows. But Jake could see the growing power in their eyes. They were no longer the helpless babies he had first met. They were changing, evolving, and the power within them was undeniable. They won't stop, will they? Jake asked, his voice low as he looked at Lyra. She shook her head. No. The Elder will never give up. He sees the twins as a threat to everything he's worked for. But we've taken the first step, Jake. We've shown that we won't back down, something he didn't expect. Jake looked out at the ruined city around them. The battle had left its mark-broken stone, scorched earth, and the remnants of their enemies scattered among the debris. But it wasn't just the city that had been changed. Jake could feel it within himself, a shift, a change in the way he saw the world. He was no longer just an engineer, a man who fixed things. He had become something more. He had become a protector. Do you think we can win? Jake asked quietly. Lyra met his gaze, her eyes filled with determination. We can, but it won't be easy. The Elder's power is vast and his reach stretches across the galaxy. But we have something he doesn't, unity. We have each other, and we have the children. Together we can stop him. Jake nodded, feeling a surge of hope. It wasn't much, but it was enough. They weren't alone in this fight. They had each other, and they had a chance to make a difference for the twins, for Lyra, for the future. The city was quiet now, the battle over, but Jake knew their work was far from done. There were still allies to be gathered, old wounds to be healed, and a war to be fought. They couldn't stay here forever, had to move. Lyra turned to him, her face softening for a moment. We'll need to travel to the other worlds to find the allies who will help us. The galaxy is vast, and there are many who will stand with us if we ask. But we have to act quickly. The Elder spies will report back to him soon, and he will be coming for us. Jake took a deep breath, his mind racing. There was so much to do, so many unknowns. But there was one thing he knew for sure. They couldn't stay in the shadows any longer. The twins and their future were too important. The fight had just begun, and there was no turning back now. We'll do it, Jake said, his voice firm. We'll find the allies we need. We'll stop the Elder, together. Lyra smiled, a small but genuine smile. I knew I could count on you, Jake. They turned toward the twins, who were standing silently by the edge of the temple, their glowing eyes watching everything around them. There was a quiet power in their presence, a weight to it that made the air feel thicker, charged. Jake had never fully understood what the twins could do or what they would become, but he could see it now. They were the key to everything, and he had to make sure they were safe. "They're growing stronger every day," Lyra said, her voice soft as she watched them. "Soon, they will be able to help us in ways we can't even imagine." Jake nodded, his gaze lingering on the twins. They were so young, and yet they had the potential to change the galaxy. They were a symbol of hope, of something greater than themselves. He had no idea what the future held for them, but he knew he would do everything in his power to ensure they had a chance to fulfill their destiny. "Let's go," Jake said finally, his voice steady with resolve. "We have work to do." Lyra gave a small nod, and they turned to leave the city behind. The ancient temple, once a place of power for Lyra's people, now stood as a symbol of their resistance. It had been the site of their first battle. It would not be the last. As they made their way out of the city and toward their ship, Jake felt a strange sense of peace. They were no longer running, no longer hiding. They were fighting for something bigger than themselves. That gave him strength. They boarded the ship and set off into the vastness of space. The stars stretched out before them, endless and beautiful. Jake stared out the window, his thoughts drifting. There were still many dangers ahead. The Elder would not give up easily, and there were others who might try to take advantage of the twins' power. But Jake knew one thing: they weren't alone. They had each other. They had hope. And with that hope, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The future was uncertain. But as Jake looked at the twins, he knew that whatever happened, they would be ready. They would fight together, and they would protect the future of the galaxy.